Hi, and welcome to the Authentic Audience Podcast. I'm your host, Krista Ritma. This is a marketing podcast like you haven't heard before. It's about real connections and honest conversations. Why am I here? To remind you that you can fly. If you're brave enough to listen to that calling inside you, I'm here to serve you and show you that marketing can and should be honest, that the truth sells and authenticity wins. So, how can businesses and brands build a real and authentic audience? The Authentic Audience Podcast gives you insight into growing your business and marketing strategies to gain real followers and loyal customers. Each week, I create a space of radical honesty for thought leaders and entrepreneurs who have built successful businesses to share their insights on business, marketing, relationships, life, and spirituality. Each episode is sure to remind you the power of storytelling and truth selling. Get ready to get real, get raw, get honest, and keep growing. Jake and Cori Orak are friendly Minnesotans who have lived and worked abroad in Southeast Asia, primarily Vietnam, since 2006. In 2011, Jake launched Ethnotek, a socially responsible laptop and travel bag company that features ethically sourced handmade textiles from their 200 partnering artisans in Ghana, Guatemala, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Cori joined the company full-time in 2016, and the couple have been running the business remotely between Bali, Indonesia, and Vietnam ever since. I met these guys. We'll talk all about how we met, but obviously after listening to that intro, everybody knows why they're here. I'm so excited to have you guys. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us. We're super excited.
I'm so excited. Wi-Fi is working. They're coming to me from Bali. So hopefully, fingers crossed, all goes well. But let's just start. It's been a minute since I connected with you guys. So we're going to start, as I always start, by just what's happening in your world. What's going on over there?
Well, it's happening in everybody's world, obviously, but we have been hunkered down here in Bali for about 75 days now.
But who's counting?
We actually, yeah, exactly. No one's counting, but I am counting. I count every like couple of weeks, and it always blows my mind because I haven't been counting. So then I'm like, oh wait, what? But I guess back in early February, we were out in Vietnam with the production team, and they had already shut down for COVID and everything. So we luckily were there to, wrap things up and know that something was coming a little ahead of the curve. And then got back here at the start of March and have been just doing our best the last few months, kind of managing the whole system from abroad and making sure like the US warehouse is okay. Luckily, all of our artisans usually work from home, so checking in on them and making sure everybody's okay. And we got lucky enough to work with the production team and shut down the factory for about a month to make sure everybody there was fine through the month of April. So just staying positive as we can and creative. And I mean, Jake, this is a time where Jake's thriving, and this is a time where I'm not so thriving, which I know a lot of people are facing that same seesaw and back and forth. But yeah, just hanging in there. I mean, we just got our sunshine today after a couple of weeks of rain, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I know Clay and I are having a similar experience. Clay is thriving as an introvert, and I am like scratching at the door to get out and driving him totally crazy. And like Clay and I, you guys also work together, so maybe we can talk or touch on that a little bit. But first, we actually are friends. We know each other, and this is fun for me because I love meeting people for the first time on the podcast, but I also love getting to connect with people I already know and love. And we've met in person. Should I tell the story of how we've met? Do you guys remember how we met?
I just got like nervous goosebumps on how excited I was thinking about, like I just was stumbling through photos of last summer too and was thinking about the whole thing, but you should do it from your perspective so we can hear it.
Yeah.
Well, we actually met on Trevor and Emery's floor. It was after Red Rocks, and we were staying with them, and they said, "Oh, we're going to have this couple over. They're super cool. They're the Ethnotek guys." And I, of course, had seen their bags, very jealous of their bags, and they're just the coolest design. And Emery, of course, is super passionate about the work you do. So she had shared your story with me, and we ended up just sitting after Red Rocks. So many people want to stop through and say hi. So it's sort of just this revolving door. And Clay and I were pretty whooped sitting on the floor, and in walked you beautiful people. And I think we ended up talking for like 2 to 3 hours just about business, marketing, life, working with your spouse, all of the things. And it was just the most beautiful connection. And we've kept in touch since then, and have done some work together and just supported each other from afar. And it's a really beautiful friendship. And I'm just so grateful to know you guys.
I agree. I think it's such a cool, like little big universe that exists out of all of this. Like listening to previous episodes, hearing how many people are tied and strained together through Emery, but
For sure.
through like music in general, because like, you know, Shay and Nako and Trevor and all these people kind of like slowly trickled in through all these different avenues. And then like years later, someone will see like my Nako shirt on a video we do, and they're like, "Oh my God, I know someone and someone." And it's like this cool, huge friendship that everybody's immediately friends with each other. It's just like that lovely.
And then we just give them all bags.
and then we just gush on them, and we're like, "Have our thing."
Do you want a backpack? What do you want? What size is your laptop?
It's the best. And I think that's so true. It's such like a soul family. I've gotten to spend some time with Shay, and finally got to meet Nako recently, of course, over FaceTime or Zoom. Deborah is a big weaver in that too. Deborah Silverman, who does astrology, she's a big part of a big connector. And everybody, it's very ancestral. And I actually love that. I love how connected we all are. And yeah, it's just, I feel so grateful that I ended up somehow a part of this tribe. And it's really fun because we all do different things. Like you guys have you have Ethnotek, of course. Emery's an artist. Trevor's an artist. We have athletes. We have musicians. We have actresses. We have astrologers. And it's just everybody has their own sort of specialty that they bring to the table. And it's really, really fun. So I'd love to dive in, though, because I'm a huge fan of Ethnotek, and I want to introduce our audience to you. Ethnotek is just, I'm just so excited about this. So why don't we just dive in? How did you get started? What is Ethnotek? What's your mission? All the things.
Yeah, for sure. So you did a good job of explaining kind of the short story of who we are. But just really quickly, how it got started is, Cori and I both moved to Vietnam from Minnesota, but we were in separate places. So we were just kind of freshly dating at the time. She was in Tanzania. Do you want to talk about what you did in Tanzania?
I was there for 2 months doing HIV/AIDS prevention education, and then web design, building a website for a school out there.
Yeah, and at that same time, I was working at 3M Corporation, designing.
Which was awesome to see this man in a suit with shoes that clicked when he walked. Like, yeah. I can't even believe that
totally not me, but got to get some experience under the belt. And then was just kind of desperately looking for another job that was more me, and saw a internship for a bag designer in Vietnam. And I had studied abroad in Southeast Asia for a while, so I kind of knew what I was getting into. So quit the job, moved to Vietnam for that, and just told Cori about it and said, if you want to come, but I'm definitely going. And so took that internship, and then, I think probably a month after being there, you came and joined.
I was in the middle of my trip in Arusha, and I I had like a week between arriving home from Africa to like see all my family, check in with everybody, pack up all my shit, and meet Jake out in Vietnam. And it was funny because I didn't even know what I was going to do with myself, but I was 22 and felt madly in love with Tanzania and was actually just thinking to myself, how can I make this my life?
I thought you were going to say madly in love with Jake.
I was.
Well, that too.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, well, we were 2 years into dating, and like it was, we went to different universities, and we've always had kind of a distance relationship, and it's been like the strongest, most beautiful relationship. And like when he asked, it was no question. Like, of course, I would join on this adventure. Luckily, I'm the kind of person who I just like to learn. I'll just make do with wherever we go. So luckily, I just went there and just figured it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you took quite a risk because that was his first ever 401k job with good salary, with all these things. And he dropped it for a $500 a month internship in Vietnam. His family was a bit nervous about that.
Yeah, exactly. But went for it, and just had to learn how to design bags because I didn't learn that at university. So that was a good learning experience. And to be fully honest, like I don't think I've told you this, but what better time
than on a public podcast?
Yeah, exactly. So,
yes.
So I had a like a mission. I was gonna, work this job for like 6 months to a year. And like my goal, like right out of college, was to design snowboard gear. So I was like, okay, as soon as I can show in my portfolio that I've designed bags, I can, start applying to Dakine and Burt snowboards and all of that. And so that was my mission. So I honestly don't think if Cori didn't come to Vietnam, Ethnotek never would have happened because when she came, like we were able to fall deeper in love, and then we made a life there. So we decided this feels good. Let's just ride this out. And, 3 years later, we, in that time, we were able to explore Vietnam and fall in love with Vietnam. And that's how I discovered the idea for Ethnotek. Was probably our second year living there. Took a solo motorbike trip through the northern highlands near the border of China. And there's some Hmong communities up there that make this amazing, mind-blowing hand embroidery, and did some homestays, and was just kind of, I had never experienced culture like that because they still wear their traditional costumes, and, did some trekking, and, being from the suburbs of the US, like I didn't know that type of culture. And so it just completely opened me wide open for, how can I be a part of this? Like, how can I raise awareness? How can I maybe even make a company out of it? And so it's the textiles in particular that got me. And since I was designing bags at the time, I was like, nothing out there exists that I've seen, combining these traditional cultural handmade textiles with high-tech bags, like laptop bags, waterproof bags. I've only ever seen them on like, fall apart in a week bags in like tourist shops. And so just jotted it down in my notebook and then tabled it for a few years. And after we were done in Vietnam, we moved to Switzerland with the same company, and then eventually to LA for another bag design company. And it's when we were in LA that I decided to actually pursue it. So it was just moonlighting.
Put a little pin in there, because that little by the by, we were in Switzerland, then we were in LA. Like, we got married in Switzerland, and then in LA we lived for a year, and then we split up because I was missing Vietnam. And so I was like, this, I can't fit in. I can't make this work. I found this home and this life, and I couldn't. I was running a coffee shop at the time, and I loved that. I loved regulars and everything, but I just was missing this huge piece of my heart. And initially we were going to try to make it work where he worked with his company, but worked remotely. So I went first, but when I was gone, we ended up splitting up. And it was because I was gone that you actually had that drive and motivating factor to kind of like spend some of that time and some of that emotion and passion in creating Ethnotek.
Absolutely. Just poured myself into it 100%. I think it was my way of dealing with the emotions. kind of channeling it, deferring it maybe.
A true artist, one might.
Yeah. You need a little angst in there to like get some good stuff going. So yeah, but we spent that whole year communicating online, and then just was working on it nights and weekends, and then, you know, spent my savings and got some family members to chip in on it to produce the first round of backpacks. Just wanted to put them online and see how they would go. And a couple weeks later, REI called us up. A couple weeks after that, Urban Outfitters. We're not with them anymore, but like that was the confidence booster I needed. And so it then was a real thing. And so I wanted to tell my boss at the time, just to be fully transparent, because I didn't want him to find out like some other way, like, because we were going to get a lot of press because I was talking to some bloggers and things like that. So I didn't want him to find out.
Right.
Not for me. So I told him on a Friday, and I was fired on Monday. And so then, I had to move all the inventory back to Minnesota. And
back to mom's house,
as well as all of our belongings, which weren't much anyways. And that was the time when it's like, okay, you have to be all in on this thing. You've committed. And so just went for it and did some trade shows, and, you know, it kept growing and growing. So that was the time when it's like, okay, you got to get back to Vietnam, get close to the production team.
Mm-hmm.
And Cori was already there.
We were, because I had gone home I was teaching. I was a teacher in Vietnam, and I was teaching at a kindergarten, and I had gone home for a summer, and had been to California because I wanted to visit all my friends. And I actually missed my flights and called up Jake, and we had been emailing and stuff. And I was like, that's fate. I like got locked out of LAX, and Jake's here, and I had to have him come pick me up. And we were like, all right, like we do, there's nothing but love here. It's worth all the hard conversations and everything. And also during that time when we were just friends, I was in Vietnam, and I was able to drive to this small workshop that he was having his samples being done at. And I was able to do these tiny things because, you know, at the heart of it, even if we didn't get back together, I believed in the project with that, like, regardless of what was going to happen with Jake and I. And so luckily Jake was able to take that risk and come move back to Vietnam with me, and I was able to be his sugar mama and have my little teacher salary while he sat at the kitchen table and built Ethnotek.
And you're amazing, because we still weren't like committed to being back together in a relationship. You just are a good person and wanted this thing to succeed. And of course, like, you know, our spark was turning back into something more. And so we just gave it time, and I was just kind of at the factory with her for 3 months, and then another 3 months in the US doing trade shows or whatever else, filling orders out of mom's basement. And then kind of off and on for, I guess, a full year back in 2012. And then we were like, we got to do this. We're back together. So I moved there full time, and then was there for the remaining, few years of the startup. And just only 2 or 3 years ago, we moved to Bali, but we still go back there every quarter. Now, not so much because of travel restrictions.
We were just there though, like 2 months ago.
Yeah. So we're kind of doing the on-off thing together, and now she's with the company. So I do give her credit for creating a life that was able to nurture this business. And also now that she's in it, it's becoming way better, way more organized. And so she was there from the beginning, and now and is here now. And it's now just really, really taking off, which is crazy to say after, being 8 years in business.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a crazy journey. And
I love this story so much. And I didn't know you guys spent a year apart, and Clay and I did as well. I don't know if you guys know that, but we broke up for a year too. And it's so funny. I was just texting a friend earlier today about it. Actually, he was like, I can't believe you guys broke up for a year. And I'm like, it's actually why we're together, Clay would say. Yeah. That year we spent apart is the year that sort of, I think time apart isn't always a bad thing. And for us, it's a huge, huge, huge part of our story. So I'm so glad, Cori, you jumped in there with that key fact of information that Jake just skipped right over.
Yeah. Just brush that right under the rug.
Yeah, but it's such a beautiful story. And it's like, obviously people listening know exactly why you're on this podcast now, because it's so authentic. It's so true. And meeting the two of them, it's just like this, energy. It's really contagious, as you could hear in their story. And they take turns speaking, and I've had a chance to sort of dive in with them more and into their business. And it's just such a beautiful partnership and such a beautiful mission and company. So let's talk a little bit more about the mission. I also wanted to talk, Cori, you left a note here for me about Blue Ocean Strategy, and I love that book. So I want to talk about that. But a little bit more about the mission, because you are a socially good, all of these things, ethically sustainable, words. But what does that mean for you guys? What kind of hoops have you had to jump through? And what is the sort of mission or, mission statement, or like why? What is the why behind Ethnotek?
Yeah, absolutely. So the why behind Ethnotek is kind of twofold, but it all comes down to handmade textiles and the culture and the history that's literally air quotes woven into them, because it's one of the oldest art forms on this planet. And just about every community has their own type of textile. And just this, the way that our society has evolved is that they might disappear someday if people don't take action. And there's a lot of amazing people out there that you interview too that are taking action on it. So we share that mission, and it's to keep that alive and to help bring demand to those places, restore demand to those places, and also make them available to people in an accessible way. So I think that it's important not to put them on a museum wall or on a handbag that costs $1,000. I think it's something that should be carried with you at a reasonable price. So. And I think that that's a way to make it a little more sustainable. And this is not, the white canon of we helping those poor defenseless people. It's about finding others with the same mission. So
I love that.
In the beginning, I was definitely naive, because I was thinking from that perspective, how can I help? I had a very charitable mindset at that time. It's like, I bought a plane ticket, went to the villages, what do you need? Do you need to buy food, totally. You can build a feeding facility, a school, what do you need? And they're like, settle down, young grasshopper. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm. But really, honestly, the one way you can help us most is buy the things we make. And we will distribute the wealth and throughout our community the way that we know how best. And so to me, that was easy because it was a language I already spoke, being a bag designer for, I guess, 5 or 6 years at that point. So I was like, okay, cool. This is a trade relationship. This is way easier to manage, but also it's more sustainable long-term. So it's not charity. It's not job creation. It's simply, a buy-sell agreement, and they become our business partners. And that's how we see it.
In the long run, we work with 5 countries, and with each place, they've all been, I think we've been in partnership with them for at least, I'd say 5 years is the minimum for some of them. And they're our friends. We know about their families. We get on calls, and that's the main priority. It's so since the model of working together is so simple, it's all about building, establishing, and keeping trust and good faith, and getting to know each other. And when they've been interviewed, they don't say Ethnotek, they say Jake and Cori when they talk about what we're doing, because it is personal. And so there's that. But also my mission is from the beginning not to have it be this real small scale bespoke thing. I want to do it at scale, because I feel that that's the most effective way. And the artisans want that too. They don't want to create a meter or 2 a month. They want to create more, and they want to build more looms to get people rallied around it, because they want
to keep their culture alive too. They want to, keep these traditions going, and they enjoy it, and they want to teach it to the younger generations. And so commerce is kind of the number one way to do it. And I think small business has that ability to make that impact a lot faster. So I think that, that dictates how the products are designed and the kind of lines we put on them, all of it. Like it comes from that mindset of, okay, we're a community, we're protecting something, we're working together, and it needs to be at scale. And so we want to make this thing long lasting. So that has to be built into everything from the price point to the marketing to what clips we use. So
one of the things that was really strong for me is the educational aspect, because watching these things throughout the years, like even before I joined the company, watching, each community and learning from all the elders was beautiful and awe-inspiring. But then seeing that the youth were, taking buses and trains and, any mode of transport they can get to faraway cities and villages for them to get work, and have no interest in continuing it because that there wasn't a demand. So learning how to build and create that demand, then going into seeing educational facilities turn up in these communities has been the coolest thing. Like we visited India, and if you could say a little bit about India, we went back just a few years ago and were able to see that actual facility having been built since we started.
That's a key point to make, because like our job, we don't create this demand, we don't delegate work, we don't we aren't the people on the ground that create the magic. It's all about, like, my job is finding the right people. So it's all about finding community leaders and the elders, like Cori mentioned. So in India, there's a man named Shamji, and he comes from the Bankar Weaver Society. His father has been a figurehead in their village in Bujodi in Gujarat.
They're award-winning.
Yeah, they're award-winning and educated abroad, and chose to come back and stay and keep their craft alive, keep it as traditional as possible with the same shared mission. And they have always been open to evolving the craft a little bit to appeal to a wider audience. He speaks at design universities to talk about their techniques. And so when I met him and he explained kind of everything that he has going on, I was like, okay, this is perfect. And so it's all about getting behind the right people and getting out of the way. So helping elevate their art and, learning their process, not saying you got to fit to these lead times. We have this delivery date. Make it happen. We say, okay, how does your operation work? And we'll work around that. And so it's about finding those community leaders. And in each country, we have one or two people that are the ones that are, really making it all happen. And so, and sometimes we have facilitators. So there'll be someone like Shamji, for example, who works with the artisans and speaks the artisan language. And then we have a facilitator named Pankaj who speaks both languages, artisan and business. So he's the one I communicate to mostly. But Shamji is on all of the WhatsApp messages and emails and all of that. So it does sometimes help to have kind of a go-between on the ground as well.
I think that's a really important point right there. Well, you've made so many important points, but that point of having the person that's sort of on the ground in charge be speaking the language, understanding the culture, all of that. It's not like you coming in trying to, control operations.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. The other thing that you mentioned earlier on that I just wanted to come back to for a second is, I think we all sort of have that naive experience when we have the fortune to go into, or the privilege or luck or whatever you call it, to go into some of these ancient, culturally just like totally diverse and beautiful villages. And I remember getting to this village in Nepal thinking the same thing, like, I just want to help, right? Like, what can I do? Who can I support? How can I just give money? Who can I give my money to? Like, this is feeling that, and then wanting to bring gifts even for certain people in the village. And then my Nepali brother was like, you can't do that. There's like a whole dynamic within the community. It's a whole culture. Like you can't just come in and disrupt that. Like they have an equal distribution, so if you bring the money to this Amma, like she'll deliver it to everyone. And there's just such a process, right? And so even though we want to obviously come in and help as much as we can, oftentimes it's doing the community a disservice, by just like dropping in and dropping back out. So I just think it's so beautiful how you guys have managed to weave this all together, for lack of a better word. Let's talk about Blue Ocean Strategy, because when I was asking what you guys wanted to talk about, Cori listed that as a bullet point, and I also love that book. So I'm just wondering, what piece of that is in your mission and in your business strategy, and why you listed that here, because I love that too, but I want to hear from you what role that's played in your business.
Yeah, no, and it ties in exactly to what you were saying. So good segue. So that process, respecting that process and it being different with every community is your leverage, is your story. And so a couple things. So like the Blue Ocean Strategy, honestly, I found out about after launching Ethnotek. But the kind of the whole purpose that was already in my mind is like, I wanted to create something that didn't exist. For one, there's no competition. And two, because no one else does what you do, you dictate terms. If people want it to be a part of their business, retailers and distributors, for example. So I designed a backpack that is customizable. The front panel is interchangeable, and it's made out of these handmade artisan textiles. So you've got the social mission and you've got the customizability, 2-in-1. You've got waterproofness, like high tech, all that. No one was doing that. And to this day, there isn't. And so it's important to look at those aspects of true uniqueness and artisan mission that need to give you the confidence to set yourself apart and, give you kind of power in negotiations at trade shows, for example. Like there's going to be a lot of retailers and distributors that you're going to meet that have been in the game for 40 plus years, and then they're used to industry standards. So when you tell them, look, this is truly handmade, this one piece takes 3 months to make, and because of that, we need, 50% deposit up front. It's going to take 150 days to make, not 90. And we're going to need the remaining balance before it ships. That way we can not put the risk on the artisan to finance the materials themselves. We can pay for it for them so they can get started without having any stress on their side. And then we can get things moving. And by the time, it's ready to ship, we get our portion and the factory gets paid. And, we're a small operation. It's the only way this is going to be possible. And so if you want world culture to be a part of your business, if you want this truly unique thing that doesn't exist in the world to be on your shelves, you've got to be flexible with us on these terms. And so you like being different and being true and unique and authentic with the big picture and communicating the whole process, not just this is special, buy it, here's my terms, by telling them about Chamji, telling them about the 6-hour bus ride it takes to get there, like the whole thing. Then they can see the big picture. And then you tell them there's going to be marketing videos to help you sell the product about this mission. And then they just get really excited. Like, all right, that's cool. We'll try it. We'll try it. And so that's
a really big point of that is, and it circles back to education. I'm very much a teacher at heart because I will circle anything back.
Tell me more about education.
So I wish I had my glasses on. I like virtually push my nerd glasses up. But I think one of the biggest parts of making this real and being within the blue ocean or being within the wide open sea is there's this heavy level of patience, like dedication and understanding that we have to have, but also that we have to share with others, because we have to teach like Jake was saying, on the selling side with big distributors and with the factory and with the artisans, everybody has to learn a whole new system of working. And then from the end consumer perspective, they have to learn a whole new system of understanding their purchase, but also understanding the uniqueness of it. And like we celebrate that each piece, no two pieces are alike, because they are handmade. And so it's been really difficult, because if someone sees a picture online and they order that bag and they get it and the colors are a little off placed, or there's a different patch of a flower patch that's on it, or there's more indigo on this one than there was on the other ones, it's disappointing because they've never seen that before and they find it to be false advertising or a discrepancy in it. And that's when we get to step in and tell the story and share how, this is actually Rabari women who have embroidered this for, what does it take? 90.
Takes about 8 weeks per panel.
8 weeks per panel, and each woman makes her own beautiful design, and none of those are the same. And you have to like take that leap of faith and just know that what you're buying is going to be beautiful no matter what it is. But I mean, it's a painful process to do that education. It's hard.
It's so important though, I think, and we've talked about this offline, the educational aspect of what you guys are doing. And I think you also, touched on, of course, you have to teach everybody on your end the system of working, but the consumer especially, right? Like we're so used to, getting things how we want it, when we want it, in 2-day shipping. And I have completely changed. And sadly for me, I didn't discover this sooner because I'm such a, I hate to blame it on astrology, Gemini, where I want things now and I want it quickly and I want it yesterday, right? And to change that consumer mindset, it has to be education, because now to understand like the wait time or the price or all of these different things that goes into creating these truly unique and beautiful products, I would rather wait 3 months to get a Ethnotek bag than order something on Amazon, right? And that is purely education. And sadly to say, I didn't learn it sooner. It's because of this podcast and it's because of my business that I've gotten to connect with people like you doing this kind of work in the world that have educated me on the right way to be a consumer. So I think that the educational piece is the most important. And I agree, Cori, the most challenging. But I just think that at the end of the day, when you can understand it and when you take the time to educate somebody, that's how you like really get that loyalty and that actual change in the system, right? So I'm just so grateful that you guys are doing what you're doing. The last thing I wanted to say about Blue Ocean Strategy before we move on to my favorite topic, which is working with your spouse and mental health, funny that those maybe go hand in hand, is around uniqueness. And then the last thing that I wanted to say about that is, for me, I read that book too. I read it while I was sort of creating the company. And for people who haven't read it, it's a really interesting book for entrepreneurs around mindset, your why, your purpose, all of that kind of stuff. And I have a marketing agency, which is there's millions of us out there. And I think the only point I wanted to add was you can still stand out, be unique, be authentic in your services, in what you offer, and how you communicate and tell your story and help people, regardless of how many people are doing what you're doing. So I think it's really beautiful that what you guys do is truly unique. And I love everything that you said about that. But I think that it's also important to recognize that you can stand out and create authenticity and uniqueness no matter what industry you're in. And I just think you guys have done such a beautiful job at that. So
a little bit,
And I do want to emphasize your point, because, and I think it's urgent actually, because especially for ethical brands, because our time is now. There's a lot of, I've been reading heaps of consumer research right now about like what is a post-COVID world and what's it going to do to our psychology, consumption habits, trends, etc. And I think there's going to be a huge boom of people looking for sustainable brands, ethical brands. And, our time is now to get our storytelling right, and for people to rethink and maybe even pivot completely what they're doing. Because though our artisan missions and our eco-friendly missions and all these things are good, I tell entrepreneurs this a lot, is it's probably not enough, because unless you're really truly different, you're going to have a hard time, because the argument's always going to be, so how are you different than ABC companies? And so we have this time now, and use it wisely to look at things. It doesn't mean change everything. It could mean just change one thing and make it really big and test it out, because there's going to be a wider audience for us now. The niche is growing. And so I think it's time for all of us social entrepreneurs to zoom out, have a look under the hood, and see what can change and test it out. So we know what works, what doesn't, but things are going to be different and we can't fully predict them. But what is going to always work to our advantage is being truly different. So, okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
Mic drop. I totally agree. And I think that, it's just exciting that there's people like you guys sort of like leading the charge in this movement. And I really look to you guys as leaders in the industry, and the storytelling and the sharing and getting in front of the brand and all of these things, I think is so important, because you're super relatable and it's easy to listen to you talk about it. There's no judgment. There's no anything. It's just, here's how we can do better. So I just appreciate you both so much. Let's move into my favorite topic, and that's, mental health and marriage. And I know Cori and I, we've talked about this via Instagram and stuff like that, but I'm glad you wrote this down too, about something you wanted to talk about. So running a business as a couple, I get this question a lot. People don't understand how we do it. And I always say, I can't really see it any other way. I can't imagine it any other way. And working with clay is a blessing and a curse every day. So what I would say first is your biggest challenge in that, and what advice would you give to other couples and entrepreneurs? I think a lot of people are getting a little peek into what the four of us deal with on a daily basis, which is working together and working remotely. So for people that are just learning how to do this, we've been doing it for a while. So maybe you could give us some advice on what works for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's so. As we mentioned, like I've been a little bit of a part of the company since the beginning, which any marriage has that, or any relationship and friendship has that. You support your friend, and you, like Jake would come home with designs and I'd try on bags and be like, I don't understand the zip. And then I learned how to better critique things and be like, this isn't functional. But I would just try things on or give feedback or help with little things here and there. And everyone has that bit of support and everything, but also there was times where I would get too emotionally involved and take Jake's side, not knowing the whole end of company or the whole big picture of the company. And then also I did start out in design, and he's a designer as well. And we had a really hard time thinking, what would each other do without killing each other? So I think one of the biggest like first steps is to take the time to really think of what each person is going to do within the organization, and to clearly like work on what those swim lanes are, and to respect and appreciate them, because
Amen.
that's really hard to like. I would overstep by making comments or judgment or feedback in the design or the relationships in things I don't understand or don't have the right to make that decision or feedback. And he would do the same with me for some of the things that I work on. And we had a lot of hard, uncomfortable conversations of just, what do I need to perform best, and reminding each other that we're on the same team. And the other biggest challenge and advice is boundaries, because when you live and work with your husband and business partner, you're either working all the time or you're married all the time. So like when we first started working, I remember telling Jake, when I interrupt him a lot when he's working, and I've learned to dial it back. But and we set aside specific times to actually meet and work on things. But when we first started, I interrupted him a lot, and there'd be times where he would look so annoyed and so pissed off. And I would just be like, babe, it's not your wife interrupting you right now. It's your business partner. I need the answer to this monetary decision for me to finish my job. I'm sorry it inconvenienced you. You can be mad at me because I'm annoying later, but I got to get my work done. Like, I think that it's remembering those things, and like, you know, planning date nights, and asking, we time lock a lot. So we meet on every Monday and kind of look out the week and plan out what each other is working on and when. So we try to match similar tasks together. So
that's smart. I haven't thought to do that.
We do flow states together. So like, if I'm doing accounting one day, but I know I'm going to need Jake's help, that's a good day for him to be doing like data work, spreadsheets, forecasting, like anything that we're on the same page. So then, because it can be triggering to have a financial question when Jake's creative.
That literally happened today. I think that that's such a big point. And I think for any partnership, people working together, I think that's really, really good advice. So we have like our team meetings, but then I'm in my own world. And twice in the last 2 days, I've been in such a flow, and Clay's asking me about like invoicing and financial stuff while I'm like building this beautiful media kit, you know, like I'm in my creative brain, and I just look at him like, you know, it's just, and I think that's another really big point is this is not my husband asking me these things. This is my business partner. And I'm a really big interrupter too, Cori. And so Clay has noise canceling headphones. Jake, I highly recommend. And when he puts them on, it's like just a visual symbol to like, not bug him, versus when they're off, it's like, you know, more of an opportunity or permission to approach the bench. So I think that that's both really, really, really good advice. And I think I'm absolutely going to steal that advice, because I know on a Monday, what it is I'm going to be working on. Like, I knew today I had 2 hours blocked off to do this creative project. So I didn't know he was going to be working on accounting at that time. So I think you may have just up-leveled our game a little bit with that advice.
I would do this whether we work together or not, because because we have this shared calendar. We do our Monday where before we meet, we both look through our inbox, we look through the calendar, see what meetings are coming up, our projects, and then we each kind of share what we're working on and like rearrange some things. But then we also put in, like, I put in our shared family calendar Cori reading at night for 2 hours or whatever, because I think it was a huge lesson for us in respecting each other's time and respecting each other's wants and needs at that time. So like, it could just be like, Jake will have a whole day where he's like, this whole day I'm working on these things. So I know that I can rearrange my needs for the day before and the day after. Or we also, a huge thing we do is we ask permission. So say it's the weekend or we're like hanging out and just having fun, and I can't get this thing off my head about work. I'll ask, like, is it okay if I ask you a question about work? Or is it okay if I talk about Ethnotek? Because otherwise it was just Ethnotek 110% of the time, all the time.
And I think too, like, at the beginning, that's maybe important. And I think even though you love it and it's your baby, like, I love our business, I love our clients, but you can still grow to resent something that takes up all of your time. And we got to that big burnout breaking point about 7-8 months ago where we like had to make a serious shift. And I am Clay is really good at turning off. He can at 6 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock, whatever time he's done, he can shut the laptop and truly not think about it till the next day, which is, I cannot. So I think, Cori, that's a really good, I'm really going to steal a lot of that advice, because just asking permission. Is it okay to ask this right now? Is it okay to sort of invade your space with what I'm thinking about right now? I think that that's really important. And it's just like respectful communication. And I think, all couples have experiences around communicating, around connection, all of that. But when you're working with your partner and your sort of financial and like livelihood depends on being on good terms with your partner, it definitely adds stress to it. And for us, I think the biggest change that we've made is one, we have an office and we actually split our time. So right now I'm at the office and he's at home. And that's kind of been amazing. And we were able to do that financially because we moved out of the city. So it's like making these choices that are better for work and better for marriage. We're paying exactly the same thing that we were paying to live in San Francisco, working on top of each other. Now to have a 2-bedroom apartment and an office for less than we were paying in the city, you know? So I think it's an evolution, but I'm just so grateful. And I'm meeting more and more couples. And honestly, with this COVID and with the future, I think we're going to see more couples start going into entrepreneurship, solopreneurship together. And it's probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done is working with Clay. And it's why I married him, honestly, because I realized that all those things that drove me crazy about him actually made our business work. So it's like, oh, there's value to this. There's value to this. But man, it's been so good talking to you guys. I really wanted to dive into mental health, Cori. I feel like I just had an epiphany. What if just you and I did a gals show all about like mental health and entrepreneurship? Because I feel like that deserves a whole episode dedicated.
I would love nothing more. I'm a huge advocate and talk often about it. And I don't think people talk about it enough still. And I still think it's like we're talking with the business stuff of greenwashing, of being careful with being ethical and everything. It's the same with mental health and like hashtag self-care. It's like throw a mask on it. You're fine. Like, take a bubble bath. You'll be better or whatever. Like there's all these things that are just kind of being thrown around. And I don't think people, use their authenticity enough of saying what is actually happening or what is actually going on and transpiring to get where you're getting. Like people say like, well, like my dad compliments my marriage and how hard we work and how our communication is there. And that's only because we've faced the darkness together and continue to work hard and face all these mental health and challenges. And we're opposites like you guys, and we have so many different things going on that it's such a powerful conversation that.
Yeah, I need to have it with you because I've been trying to sort of find the right person to have it with. And then I sort of realized it.
Yeah, she's genius. And she coaches me and talks me off the ledge on the daily. And, I've had, my own business coaches and therapists. But I tend to be a pretty tightly wound individual, and I have a lot of self-guilt around not doing enough, or some days I'm really just not feeling it, and I used to just force it. But since I'm able to vocalize those things to Cori, she's taught me a lot about giving yourself permission and also forgiveness and giving yourself time. Because sometimes you do just need to unplug. Because when you come back at it, like you're actually at your A game because you didn't force it and slog or grind through. And so I've become a more productive person just by getting her support and wisdom.
So beautiful. You guys, I'm so grateful to know you. Lastly and finally, give me all the calls to action. So how can people find you? Do you have something new coming soon? Give me sort of, the website, the all the things, how we can find you, how we can shop, how we can support, how we can spread the word.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to share where you can find us and stuff, and you get to gush about what's coming up.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So Facebook is Ethnotek Bags. Instagram is Ethnotek.
Other way around.
Other way around. Damn it! I already ruined my part of the agreement. The website is ethnotek.com. Basically, if you put in the word Ethnotek, you're going to be pointed in the right direction. It's a weird word. It's ethnology and technology mixed together with some replaced letters, and it's not. You won't mix it up with anything else. And if you do reach out on any of those platforms, 99% of the time you're talking to me.
Which I love. I was hoping you were going to say that. And just to spell it, it's Ethnotek. Guys, that's we're spelling. Yeah.
Ethnotek.com. That's the hub for everything. And we're mostly active on Instagram. We do some stuff on Facebook, but
Facebook message, there's a lot. I'm pretty active on that.
Yeah, you talk to customers daily on
She's
Facebook
like the queen of customer support.
I always blow people's minds where I'm like, by the way, I'm Cori and I run at Ethnotek, and they're like, you can hear the like record scratch.
Slow their roll, like,
especially if they come in hot. That's the best part, is when they're like, when I said that, I meant so thank you.
Yeah. So what's coming up? Could it be better timing, because we're about to launch what I think is probably one of the most important collections we've done in years,
and been one of the best experiences we've been through as a couple and as a company with this whole thing.
Yeah. So it's called the special edition Kente collection. So last year we went to Ghana to just work with the artisans and hang with the artisans, but also to source a new textile, which is the Kente cloth, which has its roots in Ghana with the Ashanti, Akan, and Ewe tribes. And it's this amazing textile, these really bright colors, geometric shapes, and they come in these strips. They're not like wide yardage like a lot of our other fabrics, so they require a different look, a different design. And so we designed a whole collection around that particular textile and the stories with it. Each product has a little label on the inside of it that describes the culture behind it, and that's going to drop next week. So we have people signing up for our newsletter.
Should be live by the time people actually hear this. It should be.
Yeah, by the time you publish this, it's going to be live.
That drops next week, so I will switch the podcast around, and this will come out next Thursday. How about that?
Amazing. Ooh. That's exactly when it drops. So
perfect.
Yeah. So that's coming out. And so also would love to mention that if you go to our website, you'll get a pop-up to subscribe, but we do a lot of really cool we call it the inner circle newsletters. We do a lot of private stuff with newsletter subscribers. So there's a lot of things, a lot of stories, a lot of special editions, a lot of things that we just like test out and share with newsletter subscribers, because it's a bit off the radar, but we've got a cool community of subscribers that we really like to speak with on the regular. So so I would just say, ethnotek.com, you can get at everything else from there. And I'm super excited for the launch of this Kente collection.
Oh, guys, congrats. That's so awesome. And for everybody listening, I highly recommend you check them out just to see these beautiful designs that Jake's been talking about this whole time. I remember seeing the first, I think Emery and Trevor have a lot of bags now, but one of the first bags, and she was telling me the whole story, and they're just so beautiful. And the only reason why I haven't ordered one is because I have total decision paralysis around which one to get, and I want everything. So I'm just so excited to know you guys. And Cori, let's schedule a follow-up episode to this around mental health and entrepreneurship as soon as possible. And Jake, it's so awesome to talk to you guys. I hope to hug you again in person one day. I feel farther away than ever, but thank God for technology. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you. I'm so grateful to know you.
Thank you for having a platform for this community, because I watched Jake for 5-6 years just sit isolated in the kitchen running his business without having any of this kind of support and like compassion from mutual people. And it's really helpful to listen to other people's pains and growing pains and successes, and thank you for providing a platform for people to do that.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Someone reached out to me recently and they're like, I think you should change the title of your podcast from the Authentic Audience Podcast to the Fair Trade Podcast, because it's all you talk about. And it's definitely a vibe that I'm on, and I am grateful that people are picking up on that. So to all my listeners, thank you for being here. You're who actually makes this possible. And thank you for supporting the amazing guests I have on this show. And until next time, keep growing.